There are moments when violence presents itself as courage. It raises its fist, sharpens its weapons, wraps itself in flags, and speaks the language of honor. It tells us that strength is measured by how much pain we can inflict, how loudly we can threaten, and how completely we can defeat those whom we have learned to call our enemies. But violence is not proof of courage, and destruction is not proof of strength. The bravest hand is sometimes the one that refuses to strike. It is the hand that remains open when others clench their fists, the hand that reaches across a boundary, the hand that shields the vulnerable without surrendering to hatred, the hand that says, "The violence ends with me." Pacifism is not cowardice. It is not passivity, indifference, or retreat. It is the courageous refusal to believe that killing can heal what hatred has wounded. It is resistance without dehumanization. It is the determination to confront injustice without becoming a mirror of the injustice we oppose. Anyone can surrender to rage. Anyone can allow fear to choose an enemy. Anyone can strike when surrounded by voices demanding revenge. But it takes extraordinary courage to remain human when the world gives us permission to hate. Peace does not ask us to ignore cruelty. It asks us to oppose cruelty without letting cruelty take possession of our hearts. It does not ask us to abandon the oppressed. It asks us to defend them with every power that preserves their dignity and their lives. It does not ask us to be silent before injustice. It asks us to speak so clearly, stand so firmly, and act so persistently that injustice can no longer hide behind our obedience. Every war begins long before the first shot is fired. It begins when people are reduced to labels, when human faces disappear behind uniforms, borders, religions, and ideologies. When the suffering of one side is mourned and the suffering of the other is explained away. When children are taught whom they should fear before they are taught whom they might understand. Peace must therefore also begin before the weapons fall silent. It begins whenever we refuse to repeat a lie about another people, whenever we listen before we condemn, whenever we protect a stranger, challenge a cruel word, or refuse an order that violates the conscience. It begins when we remember that no mother gives birth to an enemy, and no child enters this world longing for war. We have been told for centuries that violence is inevitable. Yet every weapon is made by human hands. Every command is spoken by a human voice. Every bomb is released through a human decision. War does not descend upon us like the rain. Human beings prepare it, finance it, justify it, and carry it out. And what human beings choose, human beings can also refuse. We can refuse to glorify killing. We can refuse to teach our children that domination is strength. We can refuse to accept a peace that is merely the silence left behind after all resistance has been crushed. True peace is not the victory of one people over another. It is the victory of our shared humanity over everything that tries to divide and degrade it. Pacifism does not promise an easy road. The peacemaker may be mocked as naive, condemned as disloyal, and attacked by those who profit from fear. But courage is never meant following the loudest crowd. Courage means remaining faithful to conscience when hatred becomes fashionable. So let us become brave enough to imagine something greater than revenge. Let us build societies in which reconciliation is honored more than conquest, in which resources sustain life instead of preparing death, and in which our finest minds are asked not how efficiently we can destroy, but how wisely we can prevent suffering. Let us raise our voices for those whose voices have been silenced. Let us place our bodies between violence and its victims. Let us resist injustice with truth, solidarity, compassion, and unyielding moral courage. And when the world tells us to close our hearts, may we open them wider. When it tells us to hate, may we refuse. When it tells us that another human life is expendable, may we answer, no life is beyond our concern. And when it raises its fist and calls that strength, may we remember, the bravest hand is sometimes the one that refuses to strike. The strongest art is the one that refuses to hate. And the greatest victory is the moment when humanity chooses peace.